Hello there and welcome to Jump Button Gamer Podcast. I'm Mike Woodard and I'm joined as always by my good friend and co-host Kosta. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Spider-Man's next-gen facelift, which has been revealed along with details about the Spider-Man remaster. So we will react to everything that was revealed, and we will also dive into some of the technical features that have been shown off from the Xbox Series X. But of course, first, Kosta, we are 1 month away from next-gen consoles. How does that feel? Does that just feel like not real, or like does this feel like a good time for a console jump?
I mean, gotta say, since I don't have a pre-order safely in hand, you know, I feel kind of indifferent about it right now. Okay.
I didn't want to. I was gonna bring that up, but I didn't want to rub that in or anything. I didn't want to like rub salt in the wound there.
I'm really more so than anything, I am just more so looking forward to games like Cyberpunk. You know, that comes out, just shortly after the Series X and the PS5 come out. Fortunately, I'll be able to play that on my Xbox One X. And honestly, I think that, Cyberpunk, it is going to be even though it's on PS4 and Xbox One, I do believe that it will give us like a taste of that like next gen experience. I really do think that CD Projekt Red, they are pushing, at least this generation that we're about to exit, they're pushing it to its absolute limits, right? So it's like right up against that beginning stage of next gen. And I will look forward to, playing the upgraded version for Series X whenever, because I think they said sometime in early 2021 they'll have an upgrade available to take advantage of the new hardware. So
sure.
That's really what I'm looking forward to. And I mean, because either way, even on the Series X, since it won't be the next gen optimized version of Cyberpunk, it'll still like look and run similar as it would on the One X. Though maybe like load times and stuff might be a little bit faster, but I think frame rates and fidelity and everything like that will be pretty identical.
And those are some of the details we'll get into a little bit later, because there have been tech demos released of Xbox Series X in action. But like I said, we'll dive into that in just a little bit first. And also, everybody, happy October. It is a beautiful fall day today. You can see I have some Halloween decorations up behind me. Do you have any Halloween decorations up at your condo yet? No?
No.
Come on, man. Come on. It's early October. This should be up already. I mean, look, the stores already had stuff in August, okay? You're slacking.
Well, I mean, give it like 2 weeks and then Christmas stuff will be out,
Christmas stuff is already out. It is already out.
With COVID, I haven't been out to like really any of the big box stores.
Right, me neither.
So I wouldn't know. I mean, it wouldn't just surprise me, but yeah.
It's also a pandemic. We're all trying to make ourselves feel better. So I think everybody started doing their decorating early this year.
I mean, there are people in homes around my neighborhood. They leave their Christmas decorations up year round. I mean, it's like basic stuff, just like just lights around the bushes or the trees or whatever. And they'll just leave them on.
Yeah.
It's not like very prevalently Christmas, but that they are Christmas lights, and they just leave them up on all year round. So
there was one house in our neighborhood that participated in the idea of people putting up their lights to alleviate the stress of the pandemic. There was one house in my neighborhood that did that. They specifically had their lights out. They had a sign up on the banner like saying you're not stuck at home, you're safe at home, stuff like that. They've kind of taken all that stuff down by now because it's been 6 months into this, so it's understandable. But I thought that was kind of cool. Enough stalling. Let's get into the actual episode, and let's kick it off, as always, with what we are currently playing. Kosta, what have you been playing?
Well, I have dipped my toes back into playing a little bit more of Warzone.
Mm-hmm.
The new season just started, and I always just like to sort of whenever they switch over into a new season on Warzone, I like to jump back in and play and see what sort of tweaks and
What
new
season
game
is
modes.
this?
Season 6 just started.
Okay.
And now they have this new mechanic of basically like a fast travel system.
Sure.
In it with a subway system.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it makes maneuvering around the map kind of interesting, and they have and obviously there are multiple subway like entrances around the map, but only but each match only certain ones are open at a given time. So it's not like you can just go to any subway station and jump on and go. And also, if there's any gunfights occurring in any of the open or operating subway stations, the train won't leave. So you have to play nice. So if you want to hop on the subway, you can't get in any gunfights.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. So I haven't used it too much. So other than that, they haven't really done too much altering the season. But they always just add like little things like that each time to add like another element to sort of like the open, like the sandbox battle royale.
Sure.
I've also still been playing Hades, and gosh, that game just sort of came out of nowhere. I would feel like if Cyberpunk wasn't a thing this year, then Hades would be a serious Game of the Year contender.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I think Hades is probably the best game to hit the Nintendo Switch since Breath of the Wild.
Wow. Hot take.
Yeah. It is such a fun game, and I would highly recommend that anybody who owns a Switch, download it and play it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I got my Switch right here on me. Yeah. Oh, nice. You got green Joy-Cons.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Those are the Luigi's Mansion Joy-Cons.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Was Luigi's Mansion a fun game?
No. So I actually I didn't own Luigi's Mansion. So what happened was early at the start of the pandemic, one of the left Joy-Con, the trigger on the left Joy-Con stopped working.
Oh.
And so I'm like, okay, I need to replace my Joy-Cons. And obviously with at the start of the pandemic, like everyone was buying up game consoles and accessories and everything. Like I couldn't find Joy-Cons on Amazon unless it was like a third-party vendor like selling them for a really insane upcharge. But one day while I was at work, like on my lunch break, I was just having me like just checking to see what other retailers had, and Best Buy apparently exclusively had those green Joy-Cons. But they were like labeled with Luigi's Mansion marketing on it or whatever.
Okay.
Didn't come with the game. They were the same price as other Joy-Cons, but they had them available. I'm like, all right, shoot, I don't care what color they are, and they do look nice. I like the green.
Yeah, that's a good color. Like it doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah, that Luigi green.
Yeah.
Definitely sticks out because I had just the regular gray ones previously. I still have them.
Right.
But those were the ones that just came with the Switch. But yes, get Hades.
Okay.
If you are someone who's looking for something new to play on your Switch, download and play Hades.
I looked it up. It does seem like Hades is pretty highly reviewed. Like the first review I saw was like a 9 out of 10. So
yes.
So yeah, it sounds like something I might have
if
to
not
check
for
out.
Cyberpunk coming down the pipe, I would say that Hades would be it could be very well the game of the year for the Switch.
Wow.
But I would say it would have the potential to be game of the year overall if not for Cyberpunk.
Wow. That's high praise. So sticking with the Switch, I have been playing Super Mario 35, the Battle Royale, Nintendo's Super Mario Battle Royale. I downloaded it yesterday. I finally got to like really play it at like 10 o'clock last night. I stayed up till 1:30 playing it.
Have you won?
I did. I won about 3 times, I think 4. And, I mean, it took a few hours, but I did win at least 3 times. And I felt so good about myself. I'm like, yes, it only took a few hours. And then I went on my Facebook feed, and one of my friends was like, they posted the picture, the screenshot, and they were like, got it on my 5th try. And I was like, oh, shut up, man. No, I'm kidding. JK. And then he shouted at me unintelligibly. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, yes, I have one already. It is a very fun, very addicting game, because if you've played Mario on the Nintendo or Super Nintendo, really any level of Mario, it's like back to basics Mario, but it's so interesting because there's an aspect of strategy in this game that I didn't expect, and that's timing. Because obviously, you know, old Mario games, they used to have a countdown timer on each level. Mm-hmm. So you had to complete the level in that time. Well, that counter still exists, and it's a lot shorter now. So it counts down constantly as you're trying to complete levels. And like we've said before on the show about the game, you're competing against other players. And as you clear enemies, you know, will go into your opponent's levels. Mm-hmm. So therefore your opponent's levels get flooded with enemies. But every time you defeat an enemy, it adds a second to your time. So I didn't know that going into it. So that it creates a very interesting timing aspect where you have to sort of balance clearing enemies and getting through a level in enough time.
Right.
So it's one of those where when you reach the flagpole, it doesn't really load. Like you do load up the next level, but it's instantaneous. Like you jump into the next level right away. So it's a lot of fun. It's very addicting. I think it's relatively easy to play. And it's really actually not that hard to be good at if you have experience playing Mario games, especially the old school games. Because really, out of all the times I played it last night, all the rounds I played, I did die a lot. But most of those deaths were just me screwing up the controls, because what they also don't tell you right off the bat is that you have to use the D-pad to control. You can't use the analog stick to run.
Okay.
To control your movement.
Gotcha.
So that threw me off right away. And so a lot of my deaths were just from me shorting the jumps because I'm not used to the control setup. So stuff like that. Like very rarely were my deaths because somebody tripped me up with too many enemies or something like that. To me, this is like the perfect battle royale. Because it's competitive, but I get to do my own thing without being directly competitive with somebody else. So I kind of like that. That's my favorite kind of setup, where I don't have to be directly competitive, but I still have that feeling of, yes, I did it. It was incredibly satisfying when I did win. Although that satisfying feeling gets kind of undercut, because when you do win, you know, the game just kind of just stops. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, because you don't do anything to win. It's just you just outlast everybody else. So when you win, it's basically you and one other person, and then the screen just stops, and then it's like, oh, I won. So it's fun. I think if you have a chance to play it, if you're a Nintendo Switch Online member, it's free. So you should try to play it while it's available, because I think it's only going to be there for a limited time until March, I think.
Yeah, so, still a weird thing. I don't know why they wouldn't just keep it around.
I don't get that either, because, to be honest, this is a lot of fun, and I feel like I'm going to keep playing this. So I hope that changes. I hope maybe Nintendo just floated that idea out as like a way to drum up interest, maybe, or to, like, you know, set the stage for it to be here permanently. I really hope that's the case, because yes, it is really dumb, and it's like we complain about this with Nintendo all the time. They always half get it, right? It's like with internet, with accounts, with anything. They half get it. It's like they almost get there, and then they just stumble at the goal line. It's like, Nintendo, why? It is extremely frustrating being a Nintendo fan sometimes. So, moving on, let's talk about the last week in game news. Now, admittedly, there hasn't been a whole lot of game news, but there's been some that we can talk about. And one of the big things we mentioned at the top of the show is that Spider-Man Remastered is coming to the PlayStation 5. It will be packaged with the Miles Morales Ultimate Edition, which is coming out on the release date, which is November 12th. But Insomniac has recently revealed some teasers that give us a glimpse into some of the changes that have been made with this remaster, and obviously it adds technical details, like there's some like ray tracing and better shadows and reflections and different technical details, like I said. But the biggest change is Peter Parker's face. And Kosta, you saw the video, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of what they did to Peter Parker? Because you did play Spider-Man, right?
Oh,
like
yeah,
you had a PS4 briefly.
Yeah, I bought a PS4 solely so I could play Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, well, the first thing that I noticed right away was, or my first thought was, wow, like this is just a poor man's version of Tom Holland. You
yes.
know, I mean, it's gonna sound kind of weird, but it's just like around the mouth area.
Yes.
You know, it's like the smile or whatever looks like Tom Holland's, and
yes.
And I guess I get it, and this does circle back to the point that's been brought up several times, is that Sony sort of wants to take ownership over saying, like, we are associated with Spider-Man. So since, Tom Holland is the current Spider-Man in the film universe, they want to make this version, the video game version of Peter Parker sort of like a pseudo Tom Holland-esque.
Sure.
They made him look younger, because Tom Holland is fairly young. And they also, again, gave him some physical features that make him lean more towards looking like Tom Holland. It's just all about that association. Their reasoning for changing, like, the actor that they used as a reference, like the technical reason, but didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, they tried to explain it that it's based on like the motion capture, that with advanced technology of the PlayStation 5, they'll be able to motion capture better, so they needed a new face actor to match
they couldn't have just used the previous, again, like they don't want to just come out and just say what is true. Like we wanted to lean a little bit more towards the Spider-Man that everyone is currently familiar with, and I don't know. Obviously the voice acting and everything's going to be the same. It's just he's going to look different,
And to your point about him being like a younger Spider-Man, that's where that's where I do believe you are correct, where they kind of probably more wanted Tom Holland, but they don't want to outright say it, because this is not supposed to be a young Spider-Man. He's supposed to be a kind of like a Spider-Man who's done this for a while. That was his whole thing. He's been in this for like 8 years now.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's supposed to be like late to mid-20s, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, like that's the weird thing. I mean, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to change the face. I mean, in the end, does it look better? I don't know. I do like some of the memes that people have come up with, like some people's immediate responses were like thanks, I hate it. Like that sort of response. I thought that was pretty funny. That feels pretty accurate. I mean, in the end, I don't think it'll change that much of what I feel about like the next game whenever it comes out. Like not Miles Morales, obviously, but the next actual sequel. It just, this seems bizarre to me, because I liked Spider-Man, I liked that story, and I liked that version of Spider-Man. So telling me that, okay, we've replaced him now with this face is just jarring, and it's just off-putting. And I guess, like, if they want to make this change and they want this face to be how Spider-Man looks in all future sequels, okay, I guess you might as well do it now while it's early enough still. But it's... Yeah, I agree. Unless they did it specifically to match Tom Holland, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. Again, like for the using the technical reason that's for why they did it. Again, just in this instance, 1 + 1 = 7. Like, it just doesn't add up, you know. But I will say on sort of like the other side of what they showed, seeing the game running at 4K 60 frames per second was really, really nice.
Yes,
I mean, it looked
absolutely.
so smooth. I mean, and you could clearly tell a difference.
Oh, yeah.
And especially with a character like Spider-Man whose movements are so fluid and you know, agile, and
Right.
you know, it looked infinitely better.
Right, and that's the important aspect of the Spider-Man game, is how fluid your movement is from one place to the other. You know, and yeah, I agree. I thought the technical display was very impressive. It's something that's going to be really cool to re-experience. Now, having said that, there is some downside to this news in that if you were to buy the Miles Morales Ultimate Edition, it comes with Spider-Man Remaster, your old game save for the original Spider-Man will not carry over. It will not transfer.
Yeah.
So if you've played the first Spider-Man and you get Miles Morales and you want to play it again, you're going to have to start from the beginning, and it's no New Game Plus either. It's from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
you have to take the good with the bad, I guess, but
Well, you
so
know
that's
what?
a little bit of a bummer.
You know, I mean, that is a bummer, but, and this is again coming from somebody who is mostly again been an Xbox gamer, you know, for a number of years.
Sure.
You know, yes, it would have been a wise decision for Sony to say, yes, your save files, like, I mean, why not just allow save files to carry in over from the cloud? Like, I don't understand why they had to, you know, just put like a clear line in the sand and be like, nope, this is next gen, it has to stay, it's separate, even though it's a game that was previously on the PS4 and everything. You know, it's a weird island to put yourself on, you know.
I agree.
But at the same time, though, by making everyone who decides to get the Ultimate Edition sort of start from scratch with the original Spider-Man game, you get to then experience the full game with the upgrades and everything. You know,
Right.
because how many people, if you were able to convert your saves over, and let's say you're somebody who beat the game twice, you already went through New Game Plus as well, and you did everything, what incentive do you have?
Me.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's me right now.
So then what incentive do you have really to get the Ultimate Edition? Like, what incentive do you have if you've already accomplished everything?
Right.
So you aren't going to be willing to shelve out the extra money for the Ultimate Edition, you know, if you have nothing to do. So now this is your chance to start the game over from the beginning, experience it at 4K 60 frames per second. You know, so when you look at it from that angle, it makes more sense.
Sure.
You know, though I think it would have been at least what they could have done though is allowed certain data from the save to carry over to like at least have like all the costumes unlocked.
Right.
Or whatever.
Stuff like
like
that.
something like
yeah.
that. Like you don't have to give everyone like all of the upgrades and whatnot for Spider-Man to make the game easier at the onset, but
Right.
you could have at least allowed, you know, maybe people to have, you know, more suits, like all the suits available for those who've unlocked them all previously.
Well, and it's led to more discussion in general about the state of save files in terms of transferring from PS4 to PS5 games, but also the way that current games operate with their save files. I've like listened to several podcasts recently, and people have made good points. You know, there's in books and movies, the media that games are generally somewhat tied to, but not really, even though they're in that same realm. You know, if there's a lagging chapter of a book, you can skip it.
Right.
If there's a lagging part of a scene in a movie that you don't care for, you can skip it. In a
Right.
game, you can't really do that. You can try to do it manually. Like, you can try to, like, create several different save files at different spots. But then you have to keep physical track of, okay, if I want to experience this part of the game, okay, that's the save file. That one's the save file. it seems kind of crazy that there isn't a easy system of like, even if you're talking about like, if you play a game once, right? You play it all the way through, you beat it. Why should you have to play it from the beginning to experience certain things again? You know what I mean? So,
right.
you know, there are games like Last of Us Part 2, for example. It's a great game. It's a great cinematic adventure. The problem is the need to replay it is tough because there are so much segments that are just story-based walkthroughs where you're not actually really doing anything.
Right.
And the first time through, that's fine because you're kind of on the emotional journey with that character, so you're kind of, you know, trying to live out their emotions right then. Okay. But then after you beat that game once, like, and I've tried going back to replay it, it's tough to get through those segments again because it's like, okay, I know what this does. It's just a simple walkthrough. So now it's kind of boring. So it's like, in a case like that, I should be allowed to skip that with no issue. Mm-hmm. I should be able to just hit a button and go, okay, let's skip to the next actual action. So it's just, it's a whole thing. And so Sony's compounding this issue by not letting saves transfer, and it just doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I hope it gets better. I hope it doesn't like really impact us the way we're thinking, but who knows?
I mean, there's that's another sort of area where Microsoft and Sony seem to, you know, differ greatly.
Yeah.
You know, Microsoft has over the last few years invested very heavily in the cloud and being able to, you know, take your save data and just everything else, like your digital game purchase, everything, and for you to be able to transfer them over to multiple devices and play them wherever, whenever. You know, so just having like that accessibility. I mean, they just launched Project xCloud recently, you know, so now you can also stream your games. Like if you have Game Pass, you can stream games off of Game Pass like on an Android device. You know,
that's fun. That's
awesome. I mean, granted, you need to have a pretty awesome Wi-Fi connection to really make it a worthwhile, you know, game session. But nonetheless, you know, they've invested, you know, millions and millions of dollars, you know, into like, you know, this system. You know, I imagine at some point, you know, because again, like Sony, I feel like Sony is slowly like adapting like their own versions of ideas, you know, similar to what Microsoft does. Like I said, they have the PlayStation Plus collection, which is sort of in vain to Game Pass. I mean, at some point, they're gonna have to offer some sort of cloud service.
Sure.
You know,
absolutely.
Because you're just gonna end up, well, then again, maybe not, because again, they're drawing that line in the sand, and they're like, PS5 is PS5, PS4 is PS4, so you're really not going to be carrying over all that much save data anyway, unless you're talking about the games you can get on the PlayStation Plus collection, right? You know, like that's an instance where if you're someone who's played all those games on PS4, yeah, exactly, and you want to resume playing them on your PS5, and being able to transfer your save data over would be very helpful.
Absolutely. It would be really annoying if I had to like play through Uncharted 4 yet again without any of my saves.
Right. So it just feels like it's like Sony has like the ideas, but they're half baked. You know, it's like they're leaving out the other portion of it that makes what they're offering a truly consumer friendly service.
Hey, just like we were talking about like Nintendo in the last segment.
Yeah. I mean, again, and Microsoft's not exactly, you know, I mean, they're not perfect with it either.
Sure.
But the fact that you know, that they at least have a way for people to carry their data and purchases in between different consoles and PCs and other devices, you know.
Yeah. No, I think the argument could definitely be made that right now Microsoft is definitely the leader in consumer-friendly services. That makes a perfect segue into our Console Wars segment. And on this time in the segment, we are going to talk about a series of demos from some of the big game sites like IGN and GameSpot have hit the web recently, showing off some of the technical features of the Xbox Series X, most specifically the load times, the quick resume feature, and some other technical aspects. Kosta, what was your reaction when you saw some of those videos? I'm assuming you've seen those.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I will say, probably the feature that I am most excited about is the quick resume feature. And
I got very jealous when I saw that feature. I was like, oh, that's so nice.
So that's like one of those features where it's like I didn't realize I needed it until I saw it in action. Right?
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times, especially during COVID, where I've been home, I'm playing a single player game by myself, and then, a friend or one of my brothers would reach out and like, hey, do you want to hop on Call of Duty or some other multiplayer game? I'm like, yeah, sure. I have to completely exit, the game I'm in the middle of playing and then jump into, whatever multiplayer game after that. With this, I can just then, whenever I'm done playing multiplayer, I can just immediately jump back into the game I was playing previously without having to wait.
Yes, absolutely.
Seeing that seamless transition, but between games, you just leave them, and you can have multiple games. I mean, granted, I don't know what kind of strain it puts on the system if you have like more than a few games sort of in like the quick resume queue.
Did they specify how many games are able to be quick resumed?
Is
it like a maximum of 2 or
no? I've seen it. I've just heard people say, or people who have gotten the Series X to test and run through, put through the ringer and everything, have just said you can have multiple games. Though I would like to know sort of at what point does the console actually begin to have performance issues because you have too many games, in the back. It's like kind of like the issue of having too many tabs open on your browser at one time,
Yeah. Eventually it will succumb.
Right. So, but I'm thinking though, especially because one of the other things that they were talking about with the Series X is just that, obviously they advertise it as being a 1 terabyte solid state drive inside of the console, but in reality you're getting more like, I don't know, like 815 gigs or something because of operating system and things of that nature. And obviously next gen games are gonna be massive. Like I don't even know if they've put the information out about like how big of a download file is Cyberpunk going to be.
Probably enormous.
It's probably gonna be over 100 gigs, and so
yes,
like, and once you include like DLCs and updates and everything, it's just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So you can really only fit a few games on the hard drive at a time.
Hell, that's an eighth of the space of the total space right there.
Right, exactly.
Like, so if it's games like that, you could only fit like 8 games on your drive.
Right, and so then there's like the other side, because you only can have so many games on the hard drive at a given time. The whole idea of having like too many games running in the background for quick resume really seems like a non-issue, I would think. But also the load times, and this is going to be something obviously for both Xbox and PlayStation, like both of them. And in fact, I know Sony, like I think they said that like their SSD drive is custom made specifically for the PS5, and it's going to be incredibly fast. So. Though I will admit,
awesome to me.
Though I will admit, like the but it's not like a full terabyte though. It's strange. I can't remember what the exact number was for the hard drive on the PS5, but they didn't say a terabyte. It was like 800 something terabytes, like 900 something terabyte or gigabytes. Sure. It wasn't a whole terabyte. But either way, both consoles are going to be very, very good at cutting down on load times.
I was going to bring up Final Fantasy 15 was used as an example in one of the videos. And on the Series X, it loaded up in about 50 seconds. So just under a minute. Whereas on the Xbox One, that same load process from load to first gameplay took about almost 2.5 minutes. So that is a huge reduction.
Yeah, and that was about the same results they showed Red Dead Redemption 2 as well.
Right. And that game needs it because that game takes a while to load.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad, but it's definitely noticeable.
I think the video showed it was like 2.5 minutes from start to gameplay. And then on the Xbox One X and then on the Series X, it was about a minute.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's nice.
So
that's pretty sweet.
Again, massive improvements. In some games, you have up and running in seconds.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how games started off as being just plug in and play, and now we've spent like the last 30 years trying to get back to that.
Sure.
It feels like.
Well, I even remember, like on the, I don't know how long I had an Xbox 360 for before I learned that I could download the game file off the disc,
right,
to improve things like load times.
Right.
And whatnot. That was like a thing that I wasn't immediately aware of. But then when I learned about it, I was like, okay, but even back then on the 360, obviously like games like Skyrim and stuff still, even when you downloaded the game on the hard drive, still had quite a bit loading time.
Right.
But still, it's incredibly impressive. And so I'm, between seeing the upgrades made to Spider-Man on the PS5 and sort of seeing the side-by-side, loading times and the quick resume on the Series X, you can't help but be even more excited to be able to start playing these consoles.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, I'm not planning to get a Series X, but just watching those videos, yeah, exactly. I got excited just thinking, oh my goodness, this could be awesome. If like the PS5 replicates something close to this, then that's great for me since that's what I'm getting. But this is awesome for everybody in general.
I mean the PS5 drive, the SSD is going to be really really fast as well. So Sony gamers are going to get those same benefits. And who knows? Maybe Sony could always add in a quick resume like feature in a operating system update. At some point, like I don't because truthfully, the architecture of both systems are very very similar. They're both AMD based and everything. Really, the real major differences between the two are the SSDs, because Sony's is actually like a custom made SSD.
Right.
So other than that, like the insides are essentially the same.
Sure.
So again, Sony could very easily do an OS update sometime later and offer a quick resume type of feature, which I would fully expect them to do.
I hope so. I really do, because that would be an absolute game changer. But no, it would be a wonderful addition to gaming consoles. So yes, I really hope so. If anything, we're learning that Sony should really be taking a lot of hints from Microsoft in this current generation.
Well, the thing is, again, we talked about it last time, and it's like front runner syndrome.
Yes,
where it's like they clearly won this past generation just on units sold alone, and obviously they've also had a plethora of top-notch, critically acclaimed masterpieces, first-party games. Microsoft lagged behind on that. Microsoft during the later half of this generation, they focused more on accessibility and ease of play and things of that nature. And now they're like, okay, we've got that foundation built. Now, with the acquisition of ZeniMax and all their studios and all the other studios that they acquired before that, now they're like, all right, now we're getting ready to bring in the games. Like, this is the generation where we're gonna bring in some of the heavy hitters for first party games. But again, that front runner syndrome is like, we're just going to continue to do what's made us successful, right?
Yeah.
And it's not until, if somehow, if Microsoft, somehow either is like neck and neck with Sony or even takes like a slightly, because I really don't think Microsoft's just going to come out way ahead. Like I don't see that happening.
So.
No. Honestly, I kind of envision on the onset that both consoles will be fairly similar in sales early on.
Sure.
But but maybe there could be something that happens over the next year or two that makes Sony look at what Microsoft's doing, like, okay, maybe we will want to, come up with their own version of services that Microsoft has. But if Sony continues to be the front runner, if they continue to hold some kind of lead over Microsoft at the start of this generation, then there's really no incentive for them to invest the time and the money to compete in areas that they might not necessarily have to.
This is going to be a very on-brand episode today because we're sticking with the next-gen talk, but we're going to go back a little bit. This next segment is Top 5, and basically we like to list our Top 5 of games in a certain genre or category. And today, like I said, we're going to stay very on brand, and we're going to talk about our top 5 games from this last generation. Kosta, you're the Xbox guy generally. I'm the Sony guy generally. So our lists are kind of going to skew that way, one way or the other. There might be some crossover with, multi-platform games on these lists, but basically these are going to be games that we thought were some of the best from the last generation as we near the launch of the new generation. So, Kosta, what games do you have on your top 5?
Okay, so I will start with my number 5 of this generation. I have Fallout 4.
Oh, nice. All right.
So I will admit, Fallout 4, had its issues or whatever. It at first, playing the game felt like it didn't have as much substance to it as previous Fallout games had, and the story was kind of lackluster. Like, you were able to pretty much, I was able to figure out like what the big twist in the story was going to be, very early on, and it was confirmed. But the reason why it's still at my number 5 slot is just because it is still nonetheless a fun open world RPG. It still sort of shows off what Bethesda does best in creating these very interactive worlds that are fun to explore. I really liked the addition of the feature that allowed you to sort of build up your own communities. In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and
that's pretty cool.
So going around and finding other like wasteland survivors and recruiting them to come back to your homestead and and help build it up. So yeah, I mean it's a Fallout game through and through. I did kind of like also that it was in Massachusetts, and it, they did that's another thing they did really well is that, walking around, they took a lot of, when they were building the game, they took a lot of photos of Massachusetts, especially like in Boston and stuff like that. And, like them
did their research.
Yeah, they did and especially like turning Fenway Park into its own, sort of like city. Like the inside of Fenway Park became like a post-apocalyptic city, or fortress. Cool. Like it was really cool.
That is neat.
So yeah, Fallout 4. I mean, if you haven't played it yet, I'm sure like there are probably some people that haven't played just because of what they've heard about the. But I'm like, but not just that though. But like even people who have played previous Fallout games who maybe didn't jump on it right away, and haven't gotten around to playing it. I would still recommend giving it a shot.
Also me. I have not played the Fallout series.
I would highly.
I keep wanting to. Yeah, like in Fallout 4 definitely looked the most interesting to me. It's just one of those just have not gotten to.
Right. My number 4 is Cuphead.
Wow.
Cuphead was such a that game had so much charm. I loved what drew me to it right away were the visuals, right? like this
Sure,
1930s style animation. It makes it sort of look cute and fun, but it is the game kicks your butt. It is super hard. It is the Dark Souls of 2D platformers.
Yeah.
But it is so much fun. Honestly, it was so much fun and engaging.
Did you actually beat the game?
I did.
Okay.
I did eventually. I haven't played the DLC for it. They released an expansion for it, which I haven't played. But I did eventually beat it. It took me a lot of time, and it was a lot of leaving the game and coming back to it and resuming.
Right. I was gonna say, how frustrating was it to beat?
And see, and I knew it was a good game because my wife played it with me as well.
Right.
And see, and that was surprising because like she has like the certain genre games she really enjoys. Nintendo games. She likes Animal Crossing. She likes any of the Super Mario games. She likes Donkey Kong. And like games like Donkey Kong, are challenging in their own right, but they're not Cuphead.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so
they're not a bullet hell.
Right, exactly. But she was willing to play it because it looked fun to her, and she cleared a couple of levels on her own. Just through that repetition of going through it, and it was a great game. Now my number 3 game is this game's gotta be what, 7 years old now, but it was an early game on the Xbox One, Sunset Overdrive.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was
Insomniac's game before they went and did Spider-Man.
Their last big game before they hitched themselves to a certain wagon.
Sunset Overdrive was a launch title for the Xbox One. And
it was a launch title?
It was a launch title.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like Microsoft has been chasing that since then. Because it was this wasn't a game that was Halo or Gears of War or Forza or Fable or the other well-established Microsoft first-party frames. Like, this was a completely original game done by a third-party studio, and I was just blown away by Sunset Overdrive. It was colorful. It was frantic. It was so much fun. Again, you think about how much fun it is to go around Manhattan as Spider-Man in the Spider-Man game for PlayStation. Mm-hmm. Now just imagine that, but you drank a case of Red Bull before you did it. That's Sunset Overdrive, and it was just so much fun. And I'm just so bummed out that Microsoft didn't do something to get Insomniac to do a sequel, or to get someone else to sort of pick up that torch and continue the series. But it was just such a fun game, and go figure, because Cuphead was exclusive at a time, but now it's on Nintendo Switch and it's on PC and stuff like that. Sunset Overdrive is the only game on my list that is actually an Xbox One exclusive. Right. And it came out on launch day. Again, so this just sort of goes to show a little bit of the struggle that Microsoft has had this generation, but it was such a fun game. My number 2 is Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yes.
What do I need to say about it?
Yes.
It's Red Dead Redemption 2. It's a masterpiece.
It is. It is the masterclass of open world games. It is on my list too. I'll spoil that, but I just want to say somebody described it this way. It's basically Rockstar's magnum opus. Mm-hmm. It's like every game they made leading up to it was leading to this. You know, this is the epitome of Rockstar. Right. But yes, go ahead.
I won't go into. Red Dead Redemption 2. Pretty much anybody who has half a brain and a beating heart, has played Red Dead Redemption 2. it's just such a fantastic game. But
absolutely,
the one game that I have above it,
yeah, that's a number 2. This better be good.
It is The Witcher 3.
Ah, wow, okay. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Really,
CD Projekt Red, who now has again Cyberpunk right around the corner. They are, I think, now the premier open world RPG developer.
Wow.
Right? I mean, again, I love Bethesda.
Sure.
Skyrim is still my favorite game of all. Like, the Elder Scrolls series as a whole is my favorite game series. But what CD Projekt Red has done differently is that they not only are great at just the mechanics, the RPG mechanics, the gameplay, but the world that they craft, the narrative that they craft. They are so much better at storytelling.
Right.
I mean, Bethesda games, honestly, I would even say in Bethesda games, the best stories are like oftentimes like the smaller ones, like in side quests.
Sure.
I feel like they've always kind of struggled a little bit with the overarching narrative of like whatever the main quest line is. But Bethesda games, I think, have put more of their eggs in the exploration, sort of craft your own adventures sort of thing. The Witcher 3, you can go around and explore, and whatnot, but the actual narrative within the game and the characters, really draw you in. It's sort of got like that cinematic aspect to it, as well as being this fantastical open world game. It's dark, it's great. Like, this is a mature game for the mature gamer, right?
Sure.
And I'm really, and again, like, Cyberpunk is now on the complete other end of the spectrum. You're going from like hardcore fantasy, monsters and dragons and demons and witches, and to futuristic robots, AI, sci-fi, all that good stuff. But still going to be a dark and gritty, very sort of mature game. Plus Keanu Reeves.
Of course. That's a big selling point.
But it can't go with, like, The Witcher 3, I think, is the defining game of this console generation. It is.
Sure.
It is such, graphically, it's beautiful. I mean, again, the gameplay, and it's not like an easy game either.
Sure.
I feel like there is a bit of a difficulty to it. I mean, it's not like Dark Souls or Bloodborne type of difficult, but if you aren't careful, like, you can find yourself dying a lot playing The Witcher. So great game. And the DLCs for The Witcher were top notch as well. And they were by no means like little. I mean, they were very meaty DLC. Just real quick before I pass it back to you. I have 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
One is I have to give Spider-Man a shout out. I bought a PS4 solely to play Spider-Man, and it delivered. It was every bit of fun. I mean, it was such a fun game. It was probably, I would honestly say Spider-Man is probably like has jumped over Batman. I like Arkham City more than I liked Arkham Knight. So I would say that Spider-Man has overtaken, in my mind, Arkham City as the best superhero video game out there. And the other one was Dragon Age Inquisition. That was Dragon Age Inquisition was torn. I was torn between giving it the number 5 spot with Fallout 4. Really, really enjoyed Inquisition. Honestly, I feel like I should have just put it at number 5. I should have just had both at number 5 because I really couldn't make a decision, but I just went with Fallout 4. Tied. Yeah, it was such a fun game.
Tied for 5th.
And it's got me excited for the next Dragon Age game that's been teased and shown off a little bit recently. So, that's it.
Fair enough. Yeah, those I can't really argue with. You got some great options there. So I have obviously a more Sony slanted list. So for me, at number 5, I put Last of Us Part 2. A little hesitantly, I put it on there because it is a great game from technical details. It's a graphically amazing game. The story, in the way that the story is told, it's very well done. The combat is thrilling. It makes you feel like an action star when you do it right. When you suck at it, it really makes you pay if you suck. So it's a good balance. I would love to give that game a shot with permadeath mode, even though I know I would suck at it. But that requires a time commitment, so I haven't been able to do that just yet. But I do think the I guess controversy over the story does kind of knock it down a little bit, unfortunately. But I still have to give it its props for being a very technical showcase as to what the PS4 can do, even though it's in the last year of the PS4. So, number 4 on the list, and this is a latecomer, but I'm still putting it on, for me at least, but I'm still putting it on the list, Horizon Zero Dawn. I only just played that game earlier this year, actually basically right at the start of quarantine. I started playing that game, and I loved it. The story is kind of eh. I mean, when you get further into the story, it gets better, but I don't think the story for me was the driving force of how much I liked the game. The game was addictive for its gameplay. It's kind of silly premise, it's girl with an arrow against robot dinosaurs. And that sounds kind of silly, but it actually becomes a lot of fun in figuring out how you defeat these dinosaurs, learning their weaknesses, using the right arrows to attack those weaknesses and taking them down and stuff like that. It's definitely very satisfying combat. I think there are some issues with the combat. There are times where I felt like they could have made like melee combat a little bit easier. There are a lot of times where I ended up in a situation where I ended up just having to like jump around the area to avoid getting attacked, just so I could get into a position to attack. So that kind of kills it a little bit, but I'll be super excited for Forbidden West when it comes out, and I was very excited to get through Zero Dawn once I finally got around to playing it. Number 3 is Uncharted 4. I love this game so much. I think it's a great example of how video games can replicate movies and can give you that same thrill as watching a film. This is like, the video game equivalent of Indiana Jones, where there are other similar games to this, like Tomb Raider and like the new Tomb Raiders. But to me, Uncharted is basically that King of the Mountain. You can try to make an archaeology sort of hunt type game similar to it, but Uncharted just kind of blows it out of the water. Again, another technically great game, and yes, it's also made by Naughty Dog, and yes, Uncharted and Last of Us have very similar game systems, but Uncharted 4 just knocked it out of the park. Great set pieces, beautiful game, funny, witty dialogue, a really compelling story, worth every penny, especially if you get a PS5 and you get that PlayStation Plus collection for free. That's definitely worth playing. Number 2, and you mentioned this already, Spider-Man. Like I said, can't really say a whole lot more. It was a great game. It's one of my favorite superhero games of all time. It surpassed every previous Spider-Man game in my opinion, and that's a high bar because for the longest time Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2 was one of my favorite games ever, and finally this game came out and blew it out of the water. I love this game more than most Spider-Man. Like right now, this Spider-Man game and Into the Spider-Verse are my two favorite Spider-Man-related things. It's hard to put... There's a lot of Spider-Man-related stuff going on right now, but I love it. It's here in the background. I have a shirt. I love this game so much. I have a hat. I'm not wearing it, but I do have a Spider-Man PS4 hat. I have the statue up there in the corner of the screen. Yeah, I got the whole edition and all that. I love it. Loved it to death. I'm so excited for Miles Morales, and I can't wait for the potential sequel. finally, number 1 on my list, number 2 on yours, Red Dead Redemption 2. It's just like you said, there's not really a whole lot more we can say that hasn't been said already, but I was thinking about this game recently and just it's got to be one of the best games ever made. I know it's hyperbole and all that, but it just, for me, it hits everything I ever want in a video game. It's a powerful story. It's great action. You care about all the characters, and that's, that was rare for a Rockstar game. In most Rockstar games, most of the GTAs, you're just like, oh, whatever, let's just get through this story, let's just play this mission so I can kill people. No, in this game, the story hits so hard, and it matters. They made such a fantastic Western story.
I don't think, and the thing is too, it's like, because of obviously it being a prequel,
yes,
you knew what Arthur Morgan's ending was going to be.
Yes, but right. They even nailed that.
Right.
Yeah.
You knew ultimately it wasn't going to end well for him, but right. What was so great about the story was that despite, again, you knew in the back of your mind, like, spoilers, I'm sorry, if you haven't played Red Dead Redemption yet, spoilers.
It's a 2-3-year-old game at this point?
Yeah, but you knew Arthur was going to die at the end of the game.
Basically.
You knew he was going to die. Despite that, you were still somehow hoping, because, like, you're like, man, he is, at his core, like, he's a good man.
Oh, yeah.
You're rooting for him, and you're, like, somehow hoping, somehow he lives to see the end. And, there was a part of me that was hoping, well, maybe Rockstar will decide, like, maybe he somehow manages to, like, just go off and start a life elsewhere, completely away from everything, and that's why he wasn't in the first Red Dead Redemption. But, like, in your head, like, nope, he's going to die.
They crushed that hope. But it was a great story aspect for them to take, though, because they've never really done something like that where the main character is not going to survive and you have to play out his final days. And then the fact that as I knew he was dying, and I knew they were kind of going to do this, but it's amazing that as a prequel, they managed to set up the scenario where he dies, and then you play as Jack Marston. And that leads into Red Dead Redemption 1. That is how you do a prequel. I mean, it's like Red Dead Redemption 2, even though it's a sequel, is one of the best prequels ever made. And it and Rogue One, I think, are some of the best, like, prequel setup movies or media ever. And the way that Red Dead Redemption 2 sets up the story in RDR1 is awesome. And I was like, the minute that happened, the minute I took control of John Marston, I lost it. I was just like, oh my God, Rockstar, you did it. You freaking did it. And it's amazing. And like, it didn't feel cheap or anything. It felt perfectly story driven, and it fit. Right. And it was amazing.
And that's another thing too. I feel like a lot of games really struggle with, so you finished sort of like the meat and potatoes of the game, like the main part of the game. What's next?
Right.
What is there to keep me playing this game?
Yeah, exactly.
And Rockstar nailed it.
Yeah, and just little details that, like, I haven't experienced it in game, but I just watch YouTube videos about all these little details in games that, like, in this game that you just never notice. Like, like, for example, I saw a video that if you're away from the camp for too long as Arthur, at some point, they actually send somebody to find you. Like, somebody from the camp. Like, I saw a video of somebody was just in the wild somewhere, and Uncle comes out of nowhere, and he's just like, hey, Arthur, you're good? Dutch was worried about you. You want to come back to camp? And you could either choose to go back to camp or not. Just little details like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, Rockstar and CD Projekt Red both are really, really good of just, again, those little details that really do a great job of supplementing the overall game experience.
Absolutely.
Like, those are the parts of the game that offer you true immersion.
Right.
Into
Absolutely.
The game.
It makes the game feel alive. As much as I love the Spider-Man game, for example, like, once you beat it, the world doesn't really feel as alive anymore. Right. Like, there's a few crimes here and there that you could sporadically solve, but other than that, it it's basically back to, the empty open world, but it's just fun to swing around in.
Sure.
Whereas this world, even after you finish the game, there's still a lot more that can happen and you can do and you can experience. And just like you said, yeah, Rockstar is just, they come out every few years and they just put on a clinic of how to do an open world game, and then they go and hide again.
Yep.
So now now it's the long wait until GTA 6.
Yeah, now they go on like a 5 or 6 year hibernation,
but now GTA 6 has a lot to live up to with Red Dead Redemption 2's performance.
What we know of Rockstar, like they've probably, because of just sort of like the clout that they carry in the game industry, I'm almost certain they've probably had their hands on the new hardware for at least a couple years now to begin work on their next project, which again we all believe to be GTA 6.
It has to be.
It has to be, right? Unless they pull a Bethesda, like, oh, nope, wait a minute, Starfield. Because everyone was thinking Bethesda's next game was going to be Elder Scrolls 6. We're like, nope, we're taking a short detour. Well, really not a short detour. It's going to be more like a 4 or 5 year detour on this Starfield game. But nonetheless, because they oftentimes end up making games for these consoles that typically are the best-selling games on the consoles. I'm sure Sony and Microsoft have given Rockstar, early development kits, and they have probably developed a whole new graphics engine and all this other stuff. So, GTA 6 or whatever their next project is going to, it's going to blow everyone away.
Just real quick note before we leave this segment. I heard one rumor that it might... obviously there's tons of rumors about GTA 6, but one of the ones that I really liked, if they ever did it, would be that, like, maybe it's a return to Vice City, and you play, like, a drug dealer, and your car basically becomes, like, your horse in Red Dead Redemption, where you can, like, store your drugs and weapons and stuff. And I just thought that aspect would be really cool. That would be something that they could feature in the next game.
And again, like, that's one thing, because like Rockstar does it and Bethesda does it, where because in Bethesda for the longest time, just like Rockstar, they had 2 game franchises that they developed that they would alternate on. Rockstar is GTA and Red Dead, and Bethesda was Fallout and Elder Scrolls. And whenever the next one would come out, some of the new features from, like, say, like the latest Fallout game would be then given like an Elder Scrolls skin, or whatever,
exactly.
Or the other way around, you know. And so, I would not be surprised if Rockstar does the same exact thing.
I'm getting all excited for a game that doesn't exist right now. Wrapping up, as always, it's time for Jump Button Trivia. This is a guessing game between us where we try to guess the name of a game based on that game's review. So we're given one line of this review at a time, and if we can guess the game after the one line, we get 3 points. If we need another line, it goes down to 2, and then 1 point if we guess the game correctly after all 3 lines of the review are read. If at any point we guess and we're wrong, we get 0. So that's all or nothing. That's what it is. Kosta, if I remember correctly, our score is 10-8?
Yep, 10-8 to you, yep.
Yes. All right. All right, so the last few weeks I've given you your game to start, but let's flip it up this week. And why don't you give me the game you have, and I will try to guess it.
Okay. First clue. Blank's design leans heavily on the fact that you can refill your health by consuming victims at any time.
Oh. Refill your health. Oh,
by consuming victims at any time.
Consuming your victims. Man, my very first thought was psyops, but I think that doesn't refill your health. It refills your psychic power. Could be a vampire game, but I don't know. Your victims at any time. A total of 1 time I've been able to make the big boy guess and guess it after just the one line. But unfortunately, I will have to go for line number 2.
Okay. If you find yourself in a pinch with attack choppers chasing you through the roads, you can absorb a person and morph into their likeness to blend in with the crowd.
Whoa.
I mean, for anyone who's played this game, that's a very telling clue to what the game is.
Okay, so you're being chased by helicopters. You can jump into somebody in the crowd. Man, okay, so... Wow, that's... I don't know if I've played this game. Probably not. I'm gonna be lame, and I need line number 3.
You are a man who has lost his memory but awoken more to a world in which he possesses untold power given to him by the virus that is reigning terror on Manhattan.
By the virus? Wow. What? Oh, man. I might not know this one. Man, I got that big boy guess, and you really came at me the last few weeks with these. Jeez. Some type of retribution right there. Man. Okay. It's in New York. It's a poison that I guess you...
Virus.
A virus. Okay. That you have... Man, this sucks. I feel like I should at least make a guess, but I have a feeling no matter what I guess, it'll be wrong. Oh. New York. Virus. Kind of open world-ish.
Yeah, it's a sandbox game.
Yeah. It's probably gonna sting me to not know this, but I'm gonna have to pass. I don't know. I'll take a 0. Darn it.
Okay.
What was the game? I'm sorry.
Prototype.
I did. Okay. I never have played that game, but I heard of it.
Prototype was. I mean, for it, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back on it, it didn't offer a whole lot, but obviously there was just a lot of fun in getting these different powers and just the destruction and the chaos of it all. And
right. Okay. See, I didn't realize it was. I never actually knew that's what the premise of the game was. This is a game where I've seen this cover art several times,
mm-hmm.
At a game store or something, and so, several times I'll look and I just never think about it. I didn't know that was the plot of the game, or the concept, I guess.
Yep.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Yep. No, it was it was a decently fun game. Okay. I enjoyed it. I beat it. I played it.
Nice.
Like I said, it just randomly popped in my head this morning for whatever reason. Thinking oh, that's gonna be the game I'm gonna pick for trivia. All right.
Nice. All right. Here you go. This is your chance to catch up to me. All right. Line number 1. The barricades on city streets, the pro-Soviet posters in the environment, and the well-done newscasts full of propaganda are all top-notch, and every cutscene just reinforces the idea.
Barricades in the city streets and Soviet propaganda. Because now I'm trying to think of a game where, because all the games I'm thinking of, no, that's Germany. It's not Wolfenstein. And the Division's more about also a virus type of situation.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of barricade in the streets. Russian propaganda. Nothing's immediately coming to my mind for whatever reason. I mean, there's one other game, but I think that's German as well. And I can't remember like the exact name of the game. Like the oh gosh, because I know like the game I'm thinking of was like a PS3, Xbox 360 era game, and it was in black and white. But I think it was like World War II. But it was like one of those things like as you, I can't remember but it's not this game. All right, give me the second clue.
All right. The environments of blank are intricate and extremely detailed, and thankfully the squad mate AI is outstanding, so you hardly ever, I may have copied this wrong, I guess see them bashing their heads into walls, jogging into obstacles, or getting stuck doing something dumb. Okay, so let me reread that. Mm-hmm. The environments of blank are intricate and extremely detailed, and thankfully, the squad mate AI is outstanding, so you hardly ever see them bashing their heads onto walls, jogging into obstacles, or getting stuck doing something dumb.
Alright, so you have squad mates with you. You know, for a brief second, like... oh no, Jesus. Why can't I put my, quite get my finger on what game this is? Damn.
You'll probably, you'll almost certainly get it with the next one, just to say.
I was hoping I could at least tie it up. But I mean,
hey, look! Over the last 4 weeks, I had that one good guess, and then I've had zeros ever since. So,
man,
I would say you're not. I'm not pulling away either.
Yeah. Russian. I mean, I literally have nothing in my brain that would match. So go ahead and give me the last clue.
Okay. Last clue. Each time his charisma fills up, he'll be able to approach and recruit other freedom fighters in the game world and add them to his team that follows him around.
It sounds familiar, but I'm blanking.
Wow.
Recruit other freedom fighters. Why am I blanking on this?
I'm actually kind of surprised, to be honest.
I literally don't. I'm like you for whatever reason. I don't have a guess. Like it sounds familiar, but I can't like quite place the name of the game. Like. No, I just have to. I have to take the L on this.
No.
I don't have a guess.
Oh no! Double zeros today.
No, this isn't good. This is bad.
Man, this is brutal for both of us. You're gonna hate yourself on this one too, because you know what the game is called? Freedom Fighters. I'm not kidding. It's called Freedom Fighters. Did you never play that?
Honestly, now that you mentioned it, like
yeah. It's a game where it's like an alternate history game where Russia invaded the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in an occupied United States. And so you play, I don't know the main character's name, but you play this guy, and basically as you go through each level, you can recruit other people to join you. And eventually you have like this huge squad of players, of like bots in each level. And they like... You know, they help you fight, and they help you complete each level. Yeah,
See,
it also had a really fun multiplayer that I sucked at, but it was really fun.
You know, the thing is, I didn't think you would actually put the title of the game in as the answer. Like,
it's the way that they wrote their line is like they're like the name is Freedom Fighters, but they even described the other NPCs as Freedom Fighters.
Now that you mention it, I now remember, because that is like a PS3, Xbox 360 era game, isn't it?
I think it's PS2.
PS2.
Yeah, it's an older game.
I feel like there was another game that came out during the 360 PS3 console generation that was kind of similar to the, like, alternate history sort of thing. But I could be wrong. I might be misremembering. But either way.
Yeah, I don't know. I always wanted a sequel to Freedom Fighters. Like, I even, like thought of, like, what they could do in terms of, like, directing your squad mates and what your squad mates could do. But I think they thought of maybe making a sequel at one point, but it never materialized. One of those things. It was just fun. I thought of it today, and I was just like, okay, I'll use that one.
That's all right. So nothing changes. It's still 10-8 you.
Womp. We need like the Wheel of Fortune like missed opportunity noise, like.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for our show today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You connect with us on Twitter and Facebook with @JumpButtonPod. Until next time, see you in the funny papers. Thanks for listening to Jump Button Gamer Podcast. You can find video highlights of this episode on YouTube. Just search for Jump Button Podcast. If you have a question or comment about our show, email us at jumpbuttonpodcast@gmail.com and it may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe.